In Colossians 1:11, Paul continues his discussion of praying for the Colossians that they be filled with the knowledge of his will. The purpose was to walk in a worthy manner. And then in verse 10, we had two of the four participial phrases explaining how they are to walk, bearing fruit and growing. And now in verse 11, we get the third participial modifier. En passe duname dunamumenoi, katata kratos tes doxe saltu, es passan hupomonein kai macrothumian metacharis. So they are to walk, and I ask you the exact meaning of en, and here it's the idea of with, you just know that contextually, being strengthened with all power. And you'll remember that dunamai is a deponent verb, so being strengthened with all power. Then we have an interesting construction here. In accordance to the might of his glory. Of course, the question is, what does that mean? The might of his glory? Well, I figure you could figure something out, but this is another example of an Hebraic genitive. We saw it back in verse 5, and it is according to his glorious might, because that at least makes sense. And again, when you just do a word-for-word translation, it's okay at first, but if it doesn't make any sense, then you really have to say, okay, what are the other uses of the genitive could there be? It's really interesting as you look at the different translations, even the ones that claim to be, quote, literal, they all go with his glorious might. So there's always interpretation and translation. Don't believe anything otherwise. Anyway, according to his glorious might, into all, or probably idea with reference to, or with all endurance and patience. Now you notice the Greek text puts a period there. And what they're saying is that even though in the versification with joy goes with this verse, everyone agrees that it goes with the next verse, with verse 12. Remember, none of the versification is inspired, so we don't have to follow the versification that someone came up with centuries ago. So to phrase it, you're going to want to break out the prepositional phrase, and certainly that final prepositional phrase. So you're going to want to indent. How are they being strengthened? Well, in accordance with his glorious might. How are they being strengthened? With all endurance and patience. And then we're going to leave the meta out by itself. And I guess before I go any further, I really should come back to this ace. Part of the frustration on some of these prepositions is they really can have a wide range of meaning, and it's pretty easy to just kind of use your knowledge of English and kind of skip over them, but you really kind of need to pay attention to them. Ace is often connected with motion toward something, but it doesn't always have to be motion. It can be toward in another sense, such as the goal. What's the end purpose of all this? And it's interesting, as you look at the translations, you'll start seeing this. NASB, for the attaining of all perseverance. See, the for is saying this is the end purpose of being strengthened. ESV, for all endurance and patience. CSB makes it more explicit, so that you may have great endurance and patience. So there's your purpose. NRSV is kind of an unfortunate translation. They simply say and it breaks the connection between being strengthened and the endurance. And the whole point is that we are strengthened so that we can endure. And the and loses that connection. I would consider that an unfortunate translation. The NIV's so that, Net Bible is for the display. They're all seeing the ace as indicating the end goal of the purpose, and that is one of the functions of ace. And this is why you want to know Greek, because this would really affect the and of the NRSV. This would really affect how you would preach this, that you're being strengthened And also, so that you be prepared to endure everything. And you would have to look at the other translations or look at the Greek and say, no, we are being strengthened so that we will be able to endure. And that certainly is the message of this part of the verse, isn't it? Is that you and I are made strong. We are strengthened. I'm going to flip over here to CSB. We are strengthened by the power in accordance with his glorious might. And the purpose of the working of his glorious might is so that we have an endurance and patience. And I would just say it's an inaccurate translation.